Taongi Atoll, the disappearance of the Sarah Joe. On a February morning in 1979, beneath the sky so clear it seemed to merge with the sea, a routine fishing expedition off the coast of Maui morphed into a bewildering saga that would haunt maritime lore for decades to come. The vessel at the heart of this mystery was the Sarah Joe, a modest 17-foot Boston whaler. With her petite frame and humble outboard engine, she was hardly a match for the mercurial mood of the vast Pacific, more suited for a tranquil bay than the unpredictable open waters. Her crew consisted of 5 friends, and the sea was perfectly calm when she cast off from the Hawaiian island of Maui. Family members recalled that, quote, it was a perfect, beautiful morning, and that, quote, the sea looked like a lake. As experienced boaters, the crew had not checked weather reports. Instead, they kept an eye on the horizon and trusted their senses. However, within 2 hours, a dramatic and abruptly violent wind had rolled in. That afternoon, as even much larger vessels struggled back to port, waves reached perilous heights of more than 40 feet. An exhaustive search ensued, stretching over 70,000 square miles of a seemingly indifferent ocean. For 5 days, the coastline revealed nothing. The community rallied, hearts heavy, spirits defiant, but the men had seemingly vanished into the watery abyss. Driven by hope, the families extended the search for 3 additional weeks, desperate eyes scanning the smaller nearby islands for any trace of their loved ones. But the Sarah Joe remained lost, her tale untold. Or so it seemed. For a decade, the Sarah Joe's tale was one of presumed tragedy, the vessel and her crew presumably devoured by the deep. But in 1988, the unexpected unfolded on the desolate shores of Taongi Atoll, a remote constellation of land 2,200 miles from Hawaii. There, members of the initial search party, now on a separate research venture, stumbled upon a revelation. Sarah Joe lay on a stretch of white sand, keel upright, engine stripped away, empty of all but the ghosts of her crew. A sweep of the vicinity yielded a grisly landmark, a shallow grave built from piled rocks and a crude wooden cross made from driftwood. A human mandible bone was found sticking out of the constructed cairn, along with a mysterious stack of papers with writing faded beyond recognition. Out of respect, the grave remained undisturbed, save for the jawbone sent for analysis. It belonged to Scott Moorman, the youngest of the crew, claimed by the sea at 27. The discovery of his resting place so far from home brought some closure, but also many new questions. Who laid him to rest beneath that cross? Had the boat engine been removed deliberately? And how did such a small, flimsy vessel survive one of the worst storms in that area's history? The mystery of the Sarah Joe persists, a haunting maritime tale of survival, loss, and enduring mystery. The vanishing island of Bermeja. According to maps from between the 16th and mid-20th centuries, off the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in the Gulf of Mexico lies a small islet named Bermeja, which appears to have since vanished without a trace. Numerous explanations have been put forth to explain the unusual disappearance. Errors on maps have produced phantom islands before, but this is unlikely to be the case with Bermeja, which has been documented many times, the earliest being in 1539. However, recent oceanographic surveys have shown there is no longer such a place. This has led some to suggest that the island sank and disappeared through a combination of earthquakes, erosion, and rising sea levels. Importantly, Bermeja was more than just a speck of land. It was Mexico's potential key to untold underwater riches and sovereign power over vast marine territories. Under international maritime law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the existence of Bermeja would have extended Mexico's exclusive economic zone, granting the country rights to all resources 200 nautical miles beyond its coast. The area in question is believed to hold around 22.5 billion barrels of oil, fueling the more conspiratorial explanations of the island's disappearance. The island, they claim, was a casualty of covert operations to manipulate territorial claims. The most extreme of these theories include allegations that the CIA orchestrated the destruction of the islet during international territorial negotiations in the 1990s. However, these claims are speculative. The mystery of Bermeja Island remains unsolved, but it was removed from official maps and maritime charts in 2009, drastically reducing Mexico's economic zone and depriving it of access to vast quantities of oil. The Mexican Senate's official statement said that, quote, such a force of nature does not take place without anyone noticing, and much less so when it's sitting in an area with more than 22 billion barrels of oil reserves. If erasing an island from the map was indeed feasible, it would likely necessitate a hydrogen bomb, an action for which some speculate only the United States would have had both the capability and a possible motive. Dark Harvest Commando, Grunar Island. In 1981, the British public became gripped by intrigue when newspapers started receiving ominous letters from a previously unknown entity. The Dark Harvest Commando of the Scottish Citizen Army. These correspondences carried within them grave threats aimed squarely at the government. Reports connected the actions of the Dark Harvest Commando to a chilling top-secret World War II plan devised by British military scientists, codenamed Operation Vegetarian. The plan aimed to disseminate feed contaminated with anthrax to German livestock. The cattle, in turn, would be consumed by and infect the German population. Testing for the plan unfolded in 1942 on the secluded Scottish Isle of Grunar. Grunar, just 2 kilometers long by 1 kilometer wide, was rendered hostile and deadly to all mammals by residual anthrax spores for decades. This particularly deadly strain of anthrax remained active on the island for many years. The Dark Harvest Commando Group, active in the 1980s, claimed to consist of a team of Scottish microbiologists. In a daring scheme to force the British government to decontaminate Grunar, they had apparently landed on the island, gathered 140 kilograms of contaminated soil, and threatened to distribute it across the mainland near key government and military facilities. In their letters to newspapers, the Dark Harvest Commando Group made it clear that they were environmentally motivated and intended to leave anthrax-laden soil, quote, at appropriate points that will ensure the rapid loss of indifference of the government and the equally rapid education of the general public. By the time you read this statement, the campaign will have started in earnest. The first delivery will have been made, and where better to send our seeds of death than to the place from whence they came. That same day, a sealed package of soil was left outside a military research facility. Tests found that it did indeed contain anthrax. Days later, another soil package was found in Blackpool. Motivated by the threats, a cleanup operation began. In the late 80s, 280 tons of formaldehyde solution was sprayed across the island. The most contaminated layers of soil were removed altogether. The remediation, lasting 4 years, was followed by an experimental introduction of sheep to the island. The flock thrived, signaling the island's recovery. Treasures of Lima, Cocos Island. Cocos Island, situated southwest of the Costa Rican mainland, is shrouded in legends. It is reputed to conceal the legendary pirate treasure of Lima, estimated to be worth over $200 million. Despite its modest size of 5 miles in length, Cocos Island is steeped in tales from the golden age of piracy. Legends purport that various treasures worth over $1 billion, a staggering accumulation of looted gold, silver, jewels, and sacred artifacts, once found sanctuary on its secluded shores. The largest hoard of all, the treasure of Lima, is alluded to by more than just salty old maps, with vague X's marking approximate locations. Historical accounts lend credence to its existence, with substantial evidence and consistent records supporting the tale of its remarkable disappearance. Containing church treasures, including a life-size statue of the Virgin Mary, encrusted with gemstones, the treasure is said to have originated from the riches collected in the city of Lima, Peru, during the Spanish colonial era. According to records, in 1820, as the wars of independence swept through South America and Peru was perched precariously on the verge of revolution, the viceroy decided to move the wealth of Lima to Mexico for safekeeping. Scottish Captain William Thompson commander of the British trading ship Mary Dear, was entrusted with this task. Instead of delivering the treasure, however, Thompson and his crew killed the Spanish guards and set sail. It is known that Thompson sailed for Cocos Island and widely believed that they buried the treasure there, intending to return once the dust of their crimes had settled. However, after leaving Cocos, the crew was captured and tried for piracy. Only Johnson and his first mate were spared the noose, after they promised to lead their Spanish captors to the treasure. The pair escaped into the dense jungle of Cocos, never to be seen again, but it's believed the first mate became a successful businessman in California. The saga of the Treasure of Lima remains perhaps the most alluring of all buried treasure legends, having lured countless adventurers to the island. Yet Cocos Island now lies under the guardianship of UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, with treasure hunting strictly prohibited. Unless already exhumed in secrecy, the Treasure of Lima seems destined to linger beneath Cocos' soil, ensnared by time and the watchful eyes of preservationists. Freak Wave, Flannan Isles. The Flannan Isles lie off the west coast of Scotland and are home to a lighthouse with a particularly mysterious and haunted history. The lighthouse was built to a height of 75 feet between 1895 and 1899, intended to help ships steer clear of the fatally jagged rocks that populate the water around the Flannan Isles. On December 15, 1900, just 1 year after the completion of the lighthouse and its surrounding infrastructure, a passing ship noted that the lighthouse was not lit despite the poor weather conditions, endangering any ships that passed. 11 days later, the weather had calmed enough that a small vessel could be dispatched to the island to investigate. As soon as it landed, it became clear that something was very wrong. The usual restocking boxes had not been left out. The lighthouse keepers weren't there to welcome the crew ashore as they had been in the past. The lighthouse was supposed to be attended by 3 men at the time: James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. The relief keeper, Joseph Moore, investigated further. He found the gates and doors all closed, the beds unmade, the clock unwound, the table set for dinner, and the 3 keepers nowhere to be seen. The island was scoured for clues, and it was found that substantial damage had been done to the infrastructure, with iron railings bent and rocks weighing more than 1 ton displaced. On Boxing Day, 1900, the Northern Lighthouse Board issued its statement that, quote, "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The 3 keepers have disappeared from the island. Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane." Speculation swirled like the tumultuous seas surrounding the disappearance, from theories of a disastrous quarrel amongst the men to fanciful tales of giant sea creatures or ghost ships ensnaring the keepers in their doom. However, the most credible belief remains that a freak wave of monumental proportions struck the island. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse still stands today, its beam a lonely sentinel amidst the relentless waves, a symbol of the enduring mystery and a memorial to the men who vanished into the mists of history. Which of these island mysteries do you think is the most likely to be solved? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching Dark 5. Like and subscribe to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of this world and beyond.